Welcome to the Sex, Money, and Real Estate Podcast, the show for real estate couples about how to close more deals in the bedroom. My name is Nancy Jameson.
And I'm Bill Jameson.
And each week we deep dive into juicy, intentional, sexy conversations, sharing with you what it takes to create balance in your intimate relationships and your real estate business. Thank you so much for being here. Hey, baby.
What's up, baby?
How you being today?
I am fantastic. How are you?
I am awesome. Yeah. I am nice and cozy in our warm podcasting nook because it is nasty outside.
So funny. When we got this house, we had this little nook that we really didn't know what we were going to do with it. Mm-hmm. And now it's like the perfect podcasting area. Mm-hmm. I love it.
They know that? Did they know where we podcast from? Have we talked about that?
From our master bedroom, baby.
Yes, it is.
I don't know if we've talked about it or not.
It's where all the magic happens.
Yes. That's hysterical. Yes, for sure. Mm-hmm. Cool. So, before we get started.
Yes, my love.
I just want to say just share something real quick that want to make sure that you all subscribe to the podcast.
Yes, that's very important.
Yes, and also important is leaving a 5-star review.
Many
and
thanks.
Sharing it with one realtor that needs to know about us or hear us. Mm-hmm. So, if you'd like to connect with us or you have somebody you'd like to connect with us, you can DM us on Instagram at SexMoneyRealEstate or email us at connect@jamesonandcompany.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you for the little housekeeping tip.
Yes, housekeeping. Hysterical.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. And, as we like to start off with every episode, we like to start off with magic. And we define magic as is our ability really to influence ourselves, others, and life in an empowering way. Mm-hmm. And I could probably kick it off today, really, because I had some great magic. I was having this conversation with a prospective coaching client, and I don't know if he knew he was a prospective coaching client in that moment. And yet, that's kind of what the conversation turned into as I got to hear his truth around feeling disempowered around the clients that he's working with and the women that he's meeting or not meeting in this moment. And, it was really a great conversation because it was revealing for him.
How so?
Well, we talked about life being a reflection of who he is being in this moment. So, the conversations weren't about hanging out with women necessarily, but they're about hanging out with chicks or hanging out with girls. I'm like, is that really who you're looking to attract into your life?
Right.
Or do you really want a woman that, will be with you 100% because of the level of maturity that you are creating and who you're being right now? And he's like, I can handle that. I'm like, well, really? Where's your woman now? Where's your chick and where's your girl? He's like, oh yeah, she's imaginary at this point. I'm like, yeah, I get it. So it was really beautiful because I have not experienced this gentleman as being open and transparent, and yet he approached me and literally pulled me aside to have the conversation, and didn't know he was going to get coached up in that moment. And yet, we talked about, forget about the women for now and hang out with yourself and evolve the conversation you're having in your head, because the conversation in your head is really what is demagnetizing you with everything in your life. He was just, he always tired and always frustrated. And, the conversation in his head is definitely, is the energy that he's giving off. And nobody was attracted to that, except for maybe other people that are looking for, to commiserate with, right? I'm also tired. Right. I also don't like my clients. We've all had those, at one point or another, those water cooler conversations, right?
Yeah, and the economy sucks.
Oh, the economy sucks. All of it. Women suck. I'm going to generalize that women suck. Yeah. So it was...
all external.
All external.
Yeah,
yes.
Like.
And I did. Thank you for that, because I said exactly that. This is all external stuff. He thought that because he had the 6-figure, or he has the 6-figure income, and he's driving the BMW and, living on the Beltline and which is a cool place to live in Atlanta. That you know, he is under the impression that he has it all, and you know, from some you know, from a certain perspective,
Sure.
you know, he does.
Yeah.
And
success.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, though,
Huh.
it's not bringing him joy. And you know, I'm like, what would it look like? Really, what would it look like if you were joyful and happy despite any circumstance? If somebody cut you off in the car, you know, while you're driving home, and you're like, oh, cool, that guy needed to get home a little bit quicker than I did today, and good for him for, you know, having that position. You know, I mean,
What did he say?
Huh?
What did he say?
He was like, he literally said, now that would be an experience that I would like to have.
Huh.
So he gets it, or he's getting a little bit of it.
Sure.
And, you know, he's asking, well, what do I need to do? What do I need to do? And I'm like, well, you need to stop. One thing that would be great is to stop doing the research on how to, I'm finger quoting here, how to attract women. Because again, all external stuff, right? Yeah. And the women that he's looking to attract are going to be attracted to his energy and who he's being.
Right.
So I asked him to look inside and work on himself. Forget women and work on himself. And man, I thought the guy was going to cry for a minute. I'm telling you. And you know, he turned around. I made a couple of book recommendations. I made a recommendation about hanging out with a group of people that can help support him in his goal of you know, raising his calibration and
the community.
Having a community.
Yeah, the environment.
Yeah. And you know, he took a recommendation where I said, a great place to start, you know, well, I told him he needed to create a plan. And
sure.
I told him that some coaching would be great. And I told him to start with The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Okay.
I've heard of that one.
Yeah. Once or twice. And the other book that I wanted him to start with first was The 4 Agreements.
Okay. Oof. Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah. Michael Ruiz?
Don Miguel Ruiz.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
And so, you know, the magic is that I got to have that conversation with him and hold space for him to really pour his heart out, and you know, be transparent in a way that he has not before. And you know, he took some massive action. He literally went back and ordered those 2 books immediately.
Oh, wow.
So, you know, I bet you the conversation I have with him next time is going to be a little bit different than it is this time.
Wow. That's amazing.
Whether he's read the books or not, just because we had the initial conversation, you know?
Yeah. And, oh, by the way, we sell real estate. Is it ever really about the real estate?
Right. Right. Exactly. So funny.
Ooh, that's awesome. Yeah. I'll be excited to hear how all of that kind of rolls out over the next week or so. Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah. Awesome. Well, it's interesting because were you complete? Sorry.
I am definitely feeling complete.
Okay. So my magic is actually all around coaching clients too. I had some amazing sessions. And so what is really around within the coaching is hugging and how that habit is continuing to inspire my coaching clients.
Nice.
And so each time, well, let me explain. So the coaching clients that I see personally, we start off each session with a heart hug. And what they have seen from me is the consistency in which I approach them with the heart hug. And it's a heart hug because typically, as you know, you go in from the left if you're going to give in somebody a hug. And yet what we like to do when we practice very consistently is going in to the right and hugging heart to heart. And so you really get that zhuzh, that energy pump in and literally and figuratively. And so you actually give 2 hugs then. So you give a left one and then you get a right one and on the heart hug. And so what they have expressed to me a few times is just how they admire the quality in me of consistency. And so it's the consistency of the hug, but overall the quality is consistency that they truly admire. And so now, again, in the beginning, it was me going in for the hug
Sure.
and, standing up and receiving. And now they immediately come in, they immediately put their stuff down and their book and their bag or their notebook or whatever it is. And they're like, okay, let me get my hug. Let me get my hug. And
Nice.
then they're super excited about it, regardless of the kind of week that they've had. And then before they go, they immediately stand up. They're like, okay, let me get my hug before I get on out there. And so it's really cool that they get the impact of the connection that they have with themselves because they're acknowledging
Right.
that quality within them of the consistency. So like their consistency is increasing and what they're really, and I haven't actually had this particular conversation with them, but what they're acknowledging is the consistency within themselves that, I'm mirroring to them, the consistency, and they're mirroring back to me. So
Absolutely.
it's really beautiful. And I for sure appreciate it.
And that is for sure, what I was, I don't know if I mentioned that with my magic, but Nancy, that's beautiful magic for sure.
Thanks.
And I don't know if I mentioned that that's, I felt like that's what, my client or, supposed client he's getting mirrored back what he's putting out there.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just wanted to mention that. And then the other thing I wanted to mention was that when he was going to tears, I took that as a sign that I was getting in there a little bit, and he was getting a little bit of the truth, the essence or the truth of the conversation that we were having.
Yeah, it resonated with him.
Right.
Absolutely. You got in his heart space.
Yeah.
Yeah. He dropped from his head into his heart, and he was like, "Oh,
yeah." I was kind of thinking back about that. I was like, well, I wonder how that's interpreted. He almost cried. And I just want to make sure that everybody knows that at least how I interpret that is that it was definitely into his heart space or something, that we were talking about resonated. So
yeah, it is. It's such a beautiful space to be in and to be a part of the journey with our folks, regardless of coaching relationship or not. Like if it's a client and we get into that heart space, or it's the boys or our friends or our family, we get into that heart space, then you know that you've connected.
In a meaningful way.
In a very meaningful way. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Cool.
Well, 90% of it is nonverbal communication. Only 10% is verbal. So that's, you can go look that up, Fact Finders.
Okay, Fact Finder. Awesome.
Cool.
So babe, what are we talking about today? If they haven't gotten the essence of it from our magic.
That's funny. Mirror, mirror on the wall. Or perhaps it's the ceiling.
Ooh.
Where do you want to start? The mirror on the ceiling or mirror in
Baby,
you?
Nobody puts mirrors on the ceiling anymore. It's all video
is that
cameras. It's video cameras and monitors.
Oh, so we got to take ours down?
Yes, exactly.
Oh my gosh.
We need to update.
Okay.
It's so 90s.
Well, yes, I am. I am. That is me.
Yes.
Don't judge me. Awesome. So we're talking about being the mirror. In each other. So what we see in each other is a reflection of ourselves.
For sure.
And so how we say that is basically that everyone is your mirror. And really the question is, do you embrace that? Well, do you subscribe to that? Maybe we need to define that first.
Yeah,
what the mirror is.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, I guess there's a difference, right? I mean, you could really okay, yeah, I've heard that before and I get it. And do you really embrace what that means?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So, and then, we're not just talking like friends and family, but clients or strangers or anybody, really anybody and everybody is a mirror. It could be just anybody at the Kroger, or
yes,
whatever.
Yes, absolutely.
So, and the thing to remember is that about this, if you do embrace it, is or the way you can embrace it is to know that it's like the greatest of all relationship secrets, right?
Oh, okay.
It's the only one you really need to understand to transform all of your relationships. You and I have used it as a tool with each other, and we have embraced it when we are working with our clients, and we've embraced it with our own growth, knowing that the things that come up, whether it's it could be in anger or in gratitude, are all with others are all reflections of how we're being in that moment.
Yep. That's how I look at it too. So whether it's a disagreement or something that's very empowering and inspiring and a positive, whatever you want to call it, however you experience that feeling or that emotion or that discussion is very telling. So I think it really rears its head, especially in negotiations, which I think is fascinating, whether it's you dealing with the other agent or if you're dealing with the sellers. I do the listing side of things, so I'm dealing with the sellers, and here comes the buyer's agent and their buyers, and then obviously flip side for you. So it's very interesting. The emotions that I'm seeing or hearing or feeling from that other person definitely tells me where they are with their conversation.
Right.
It shows me what's important to them. It's almost like they're telling on themselves or like giving away information without them actually knowing it, unless like they're really aware of that conversation.
Absolutely.
Like giving away their exact position on things, again, especially in negotiations. So how I look at it for us is that when you're mirroring me, it's really an opportunity to see where I am on that feeling or that emotion by the impact or the viscosity of that emotion, like when it comes up. So is it a healing opportunity, or if it just rolls right through, then it's like, yeah,
So are you talking about like the negative impacts or positive or both, or?
No, I think it's positive or, well, okay. So if you were going to ask me that question 5 years ago, maybe I would say it was negative, or 10 years ago. But now I think it's much more positive. Like it's, the ability to move through that energy in a space where it's like, okay, cool, this is showing me something,
right,
is much more of an empowering space that I'm in personally now. And yet when we first realized what mirroring is, because in psychology speak, mirroring is, or what we're talking about is a projection. And so when, the projection is on you, or I'm laying a projection on you and I get upset about something, then there's a clear indication that there's some type of emotion or some type of feeling that I'm seeing or I may not like. So let's see. You want a story?
You have a story?
I have lots of stories.
So, okay, cool. Yeah, let's hear what you got.
Okay. So I would say, oh gosh. So a few years into the marriage, I definitely remember, this is like right before the boys were born. I definitely remember, so let's see. So this is like 7 years into it. So we're about 10 years into our relationship. I definitely remember conversations around, you're not doing this.
Who, me?
You're not doing, yeah.
Oh, me? Okay, cool.
Yeah. Like when we would get into an argument, it would revolve around like I felt like I was doing everything. Like, you're not pulling your weight. You're not doing what you say that you're going to do. I mean, all kinds of crazy stuff that really didn't necessarily have anything to do with you. But yet what I was realizing was that the frustrations I was experiencing were actually about myself.
Right.
And so here you are doing the things that you want to do, whether it was taking care of yourself, which showed up and I translated as you not pulling your weight, but really what you're doing is taking care of yourself because you went to the gym, or because, you took a nap, or because you took time out to journal, or you decided to work a 12-hour day instead of a 15-hour day like I did, or something like that. That would show up as, you're not pulling my weight. And then when I really, really, really decided to take a look at myself and like really get into that space, what I realized was that I wasn't actually taking care of myself.
Wow.
Or I wasn't doing the things that I needed to do or wanted to do for myself, for my self-care, or I wasn't asking for help, or the only way this is going to get done is for me to do it. I mean, and I don't know if anybody out there can relate to any of that conversation, but so I projected all of that onto you, and it showed up as this, crazy guttural breakdown argument, blah, blah, blah. And it was crazy. So, that's the example of mirroring the projection in essence. And, coaching clients, they'll ask me, especially in the beginning, before we get into the whole projection conversation, is well, how do I get him to do what I want him to do? Or how do I get her to do what I want her to do? And you can't. You can't
Right.
control him, or your partner can't control you, or the only thing like that. I mean, the only thing that you can control is your response. So really to ask that, or to answer that question, it's like, and this is the story or metaphor that I'll share with my clients, is if you have two, if you think of a city street and you have two sides of the street and there's cars parked and, obviously there's traffic and taxi cabs, and on both sides of the street, there's windows and storefronts and garbage cans and benches and bus stops and that kind of stuff. And let's say they're trashed, totally trashed. There's garbage everywhere. There's graffiti on the windows, broken windows, whatever. And I'm yelling at you on your side of the street, like yelling across the street. And I say to you, hey, you got to clean up your side of the street. And then you look back over to my side of the street. My side of the street is trashed. I mean, you're not going to do anything about
Right.
that. You're like, what do you mean I got to clean up my side of the street?
Some example you are.
Why don't you go take a look at yourself first?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's the thing. So then now I make the decision. It's like, oh, okay, well, let me take care of myself. Let me control my response and take care of myself. So I'm going to start cleaning my windows and painting the brick and cleaning up the trash and cleaning up the benches and all of that stuff. And so now my side of the street is shiny and clean and beautiful. And then you look over and you're like, look at her side of the street. Well, I don't want my side of the street to look like this. So I'm just going to naturally be inspired to go and clean up my side of the street.
Right.
And I didn't have to do anything except take care of my stuff. So I'm taking care of my stuff. It inspires others to take care of their stuff. I mean, we get people all the time in the office going, how did you do this?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like we're going around saying, hey, you need to eat salad, or hey, you need to run 4 miles a week, or hey, you need to do this, that, or the other thing. We're being it.
Right.
And
at the end of the day, if, when they ask that question, it's like, well, how are you taking care of you?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. Yep. So that's that, and how do you know that it's a projection? Well,
there's that thing, you spot it, you got it.
yes.
I mean, the angrier you get, at the emotion or the emotional response, really more accurate the reflection is.
Yes.
And it could be elation too. I don't want it's, it can go either way.
Yeah. Oh,
right?
absolutely. Well, it does too, because you put somebody on a pedestal and you're like, and it's really that quality that you see in them, that you're edifying them or you adore them or you admire about them. You have that in you too. So this is both ways.
Yeah. And and acknowledging it,
Mm-hmm.
I say this all the time, acknowledging it is like so much of, it takes care of so much.
The equation.
Yeah, it takes care. I like to, you have this saying where, acknowledging it is like half the battle, but it's not a battle. I don't want to really call it a battle,
Yeah,
but
no.
it's acknowledging it is most of the equation though. I like that.
Yeah.
Because the way you present yourself, you have the opportunity to, again, identify what it is and to receive that information so that you can enhance your life, make adjustments, and learn. At the end of the day, just learn more about you by how you are reacting to other people.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah.
So, I was thinking about this too. Actually, I was thinking about there was a thing that we read when we were kind of going through this a little bit. And the quote is, the bottom line cause of business breakups and divorce is when one or both of the partners can no longer stand to see themselves in the other person.
Yeah. That's,
I mean, let me say that again. The bottom line cause of business breakups and divorce is when one or both of the partners can no longer to stand to see themselves in the other person.
mm-hmm.
I mean, boom. That is just some crazy shit right there.
I know.
It's just that little statement right there says so much.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with the other person. It has everything to do with what you're seeing in the other person. I can't stand seeing myself anymore.
Uh-huh.
You represent too much of me.
Uh-huh. So you're out of here.
So you're out of here.
It's your fault.
Yeah, I'm divorcing myself. But you can't. But you can't.
Well, yeah, unless you actually look at that stuff.
Right. And there's that saying, right? Like, like I've had friends. He's like, I'm going to move to a new state. I'm going to move to Florida and just get a fresh beginning. But yeah, you're taking yourself with you.
Mm-hmm.
You still get mirrored back and reflected back,
Sure.
and the same crap that you were, you're putting out in, Atlanta,
Sure.
it's not going to change anything.
Yeah.
It's all internal. That's external fixes.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, and here's the thing is that my dad was, he had some corporate jobs, but he's also a serial entrepreneur.
Yes, he was.
So, I can't even tell you how many businesses he had. And he always wanted to have a business partner. Like he always wanted to have a business partner. And the reason that all those businesses failed, now I realize now, is because those guys couldn't freaking stand each other. They couldn't stand each other. He always picked the person that would create the most reflection for him. And my father was an angry dude. Mm-hmm. He was an angry, bitter dude, and he wasn't very nice to people. And so, it was all laughs and chuckles over a couple drinks. But when push came to shove, and which that's what it was all force. Those guys couldn't stand each other, and there was one business that succeeded, but it was until after he divorced the partner that the business succeeded. Literally.
Yeah.
So anyway, I just think it's hysterical that 30, 40 years later, I'm actually able to recontextualize all that because I had no idea, and growing up, and listening to my dad's stories, it was always like, it was always everybody else's fault. Mm-hmm. It was always everybody else's fault. It was the money, or it was, they just didn't do not on the same page, whatever, just name the excuse, and never look within. So
that's fascinating,
right?
That's great context for you.
Absolutely. It's,
it's very healing for you.
For sure. It all is. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Okay. That's cool. I did not know that.
So there's that.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
You can still learn from me or learn a story. I have stories to tell still after all these years?
Absolutely.
It's awesome.
It's a lifetime. I do not know you.
I don't pretend to know something.
I don't pretend to know something. No, sir.
Nice.
Awesome. So I wrote down a couple of other examples I thought were applicable also in terms of just identifying what a projection is.
Okay.
So the first one that came to mind is when your client's nature is to be competitive during negotiations and it's annoying to you. So you're actually annoyed by how competitive they are in negotiating.
Right.
And you have now you have an understanding that you're competitive by nature. Mm-hmm. Or
and it may be by nature, or it may be in that particular situation. Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, for that particular contract.
Right, because that's what they happen to be bringing out with you in that one. So recognize, hey, in this situation, right now, I'm feeling very, very competitive. Mm-hmm. And is that really what you're looking to? Is that what you're looking to do? Is be competitive, or are you really taking a step back and saying, I want the win-win. Mm-hmm. Right. I want the win-win so that everybody feels like the negotiation went well, and everybody's, hugging each other at the closing table. Right. And, if you allow that emotion, that mirror to release the competitiveness in you, maybe you might not all be hugging at the end of the day. So, and the experience during that negotiation may not be, there might not be as much flow and ease, and, so it's going to be a higher stress, and, it'll take a toll one way or the other.
Yeah. Yeah. Or that annoyingness will continue throughout the contract.
Right.
Particular contract.
Right.
Everything's going to be annoying to you then because you're not willing to look at how annoying it is.
Totally.
That quality is reflecting back in you.
Right.
Yeah.
So crazy. Mm-hmm. Okay. So sorry to interrupt, but it's true. Yep.
I appreciate that.
What else you got?
And then in relationships, like in intimate personal relationships, your partner complains or is like negative Nelly, and that bugs you or gets you down, then if you really look at it, you'll find that you too have a negative nature or complain a lot. Right. So just check that out. Like if that's something that you're like, oh my gosh, you complain so much, then look at your conversation. Just really look at it. So I love it.
What about the flip side of that?
Well, if you're inspired by your partner for their wit or their sense of humor or their intelligence or how confident then you are, then chances are that's you too, And so it's that's a beautiful thing, and that's always fun.
Nice.
Way more fun than realizing that you complain all the time.
Totally.
Beautiful.
So, and then, and again, not to belabor a point, but these projections can show up. Well, not can.
Mhm.
They do show
they
up
do.
everywhere, whether it's business or just general relationships with your friends and family. And really, they show up in the bedroom, right?
Mm-hmm.
I
They
mean,
do.
especially if especially if you have some insecurities or immaturity around sex and love and being in those intimate settings.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you hear about, the penis size being a thing, or breast or butt size being, or being too big or too small or too heavy or too thin, or even a sexual position, and all these relate back to how you talk to yourself in the experience.
Mm.
Thinking, when you think that you're not enough or whatever, and then you end up owning that and giving away your power. And, it all comes back to worthiness, but, to stay in your power, you work on the internal part of it, because all that is external, that's all external projections, and it's the internal joy despite circumstances, the internal, joy of, knowing that you're worthy to be there in that position,
Mm-hmm.
be there in that position, having that experience, and that the more that you love yourself in that experience, the more that you will be loved back in that experience as well.
That's reflected back
That's
to you.
reflected back to you. Absolutely.
Yeah. Or the confidence or just all of that is completely reflected back to you.
I mean, I totally used to run the program, this loop in my head that I didn't have enough sexual prowess, and I know that you probably experienced that, right?
I don't know.
Maybe? No? Always a tiger.
I mean, I understand.
Okay, good.
Yeah. I understand. Yeah. I understand what you're saying now.
But, and it was always like, because I wanted to be better. Right. And,
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't last long enough, or maybe I wasn't physically fit enough. All those conversations. And one that came up, especially as I've learned more over the years, is some of that conversation in bed about not enough loving talk in bed, which is really, me not loving myself.
Mm-hmm.
And
talking to yourself in a loving way, an affirmative way.
Mm-hmm. And so I got the opportunity to heal that and turn it around. I kept on through putting in a lot of reps in different areas, which we'll get into. I kept on loving me. I let others love on me, and vice versa. For the affirmations, and I let all that really sink into my soul, and eventually it was fully accepted. And I continued to make deposits in myself every day, whether it's deposits into my own self-worth.
Mm-hmm.
Those is what I'm talking about. And if when you read Covey, what those self deposits are.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it looked like deposits into myself around taking care of myself, both in all kinds of ways, and spiritually and physically and mentally and energetically, and it's weekly habits and daily habits, and some things are done every day and some things are done once a week, but they are all habits that empowering habits that I've instilled, that when I am consistent with them, and they all come together into my self-worth, and they grow into greater conversations with you as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been really, really beautiful. And, it did sink in, and guess what?
What?
You already know. It's definitely been a more orgasmic marriage, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, when I make those deposits to myself, there's just less self-judgment, right? And more joy, and the experience is more organic and more tuned in. And when I have more synergy with me, I have more synergy with you too, and it just makes for a more blissful state.
Yep.
More often.
Yep.
So that whole worthiness conversation is a great topic, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we could do a podcast or two on that. Sure.
Man, that self-worth thing. Cool. All right. Well, so maybe the next podcast or two we'll do a worthiness one, because that's a hot topic, and that would probably be like a two-parter. Maybe.
Yeah.
It's a big one.
Yep. It is. Like I'm already like noodling on that, but I want to stay present with you right now. I don't want to get too far ahead of there.
Cool. So, all right, cool. So if we're talking about getting back to mirror, mirror on the wall and ceiling, what do you see as action steps, Nance, for the mirror?
Well, if this info is new, like the whole idea of being projected on or projecting your stuff onto somebody else, then I would definitely say research it. There's a lot of great articles out there. There's a lot of great resources out there, and so it's super easy to research. It is definitely one of the first things that when we were going into or getting into personal development and couples development, that was really one of the very first things that we surrendered to, the concept of that we're projecting onto each other, and that we are reflections of each other. So really research and education is step one. Step two, action step two, I would just say, you're going to have experiences that arise. When you don't heal something, it comes back around. Sure enough, guaranteed, you can count on it. It's not if, it's when it comes back around. So there will be multiple opportunities for you to heal this. So when it comes into consciousness and you're aware that this projection is happening, stop, just pause and do some breathing, because your power is in your ability to respond and not react, and just create that pause. And so, and go, oh, wait a minute, this is it. This is what they were talking about. So pause and respond.
And if I may interject, I mean, it's have an understanding that, to give yourself grace. This thing has come up for healing. It's come into your awareness because it's time to address it and take a look at it. And you may think that you've healed it up, and you probably have at some level, and there may be another level to heal it up too. So
right, because you're the person you are today. You're beyond. You've already evolved to that other person. Right. So it's time for the next level of healing.
Yes. Yeah. For sure. Cool.
Yeah.
What else you got? Good stuff.
Well, this is one of my favorite ones is be compassionate. Really be compassionate. So just think about this for a second. You and partner are in this heated conversation, and it's like, you're so this, and this, and this. And then, you guys may have like a keyword or something to like stop the conversation on a dime, or like it, really consider like a pattern interrupt. And when that happens and somebody yells out the keyword,
is that bondage, or when you're in the heat of you need a keyword to stop?
No, when you stop in your
oh, sorry,
in your
my
conversation.
Mind went somewhere else there for a second.
Okay. As I was saying, the keyword that you are utilizing is your indication to stop and pause for a moment. And so in that situation, it's a very vulnerable situation. And to be compassionate with the conversation, be compassionate with the person that you are creating the pattern interrupt for, because the last thing, it will totally self-destruct the conversation, is when it's almost like you're rubbing the dog's face in the pee-pee, and you're like rubbing the person's face in it. It's like, it's a really vulnerable space to be in. And what it allows you to do is create the opportunity for you to be a space holder, to have this moment of pause and be able to continue the conversation or pause, like literally pause the conversation and go, I just need a minute. Let me compose my thoughts. That was a big one. I didn't realize that I was doing that. Like whatever happens after that is very important.
Yes.
To be able to have the maturity and pause.
Stop the momentum, right?
Be compassionate. Be compassionate. Be compassionate. Say things like, what I'm hearing you say is, or to understand you more clearly, or I hear you, I can see how you're thinking that or feeling that. Like just, again, there's that grace piece.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And the last thing I would think, I don't know if it's the last thing, but the next thing I think of is from our episode 4, Nance.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about intimacy.
Yeah, sex
Yeah.
versus intimacy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. Yeah. Into me, I see intimacy. So being more intimate with yourself when you level up your game through how you view yourself and the world and others around you, the mirror will change. I mean, you write the story,
Co-creation, baby.
co-creation. You write the story, so write your story. Find ways to be joyous and find ways to love yourself, and the mirror will be joyous and loving people that you surround yourself with.
Mm-hmm.
So find more ready, willing, and able clients, and they're they're going to show up because you are, and being more harmonious with your partner will all be a reflection of your beingness.
Awesome.
Yes,
That's what I got.
that's what I got.
Cool.
So thank you for hanging out with me tonight.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome. I appreciate you and your vulnerability and how transparent you were and your sharing.
Thank you.
I'm sure that helped a couple people.
I appreciate you smiling at me across the microphone when I'm telling my stories.
Mm-hmm.
It feels supportive and loving, and I appreciate it. And I know that's a reflection of me. All right.
You are welcome.
Bye for now.
Awesome.
Sending love out to all you all.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Wow, what a show. Thank you so much for listening. If you're inspired, we ask that you share the podcast with one person and subscribe and follow our show. I'm Nancy Jameson.
And I'm Bill Jameson.
And remember, it's a great life.
Woo!
Quick note about the Sex, Money, and Real Estate podcast. We are not doctors or licensed therapists. We are a joyous, abundant, and mature couple passionately sharing our story of growth around sex, money, and real estate. Our thoughts, opinions, and beliefs are our own, so please consult your doctor, healthcare provider, or your broker regarding any questions or issues you have related to your physical or mental health or specific state laws regarding your real estate business.